right, so let's dive into something
Okay.
that I think a lot of our listeners are going to relate to.
Yeah.
It's something that both fascinates us
Mm-hmm.
and, to be honest, sometimes kind of creeps us out a little bit.
Yeah.
We're talking true crime.
Okay.
You sent me a whole bunch of stuff to look at for this deep dive.
All right.
We've got articles and research, even a personal essay.
Interesting.
And they're all kind of wrestling with this question of
What?
why we as a culture are so obsessed with true crime.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about all kinds of things.
Okay.
We're talking primal fear, the allure of the puzzle,
Mm-hmm.
and even some surprising potential benefits that I gotta admit I wasn't really expecting when
Right.
we first started talking about this topic.
It is a fascinating area.
So are you ready to get a little dark with me today?
Let's do it.
All right.
I'm ready to explore the darkness.
It does seem like it's not just about being a casual fan of true crime anymore.
No, it really isn't.
It feels like it's exploded. It's everywhere you look.
Absolutely. I mean, everywhere you turn, there's a new podcast, a new documentary.
Right.
You go on social media late at night. You get sucked into all these threads about these cases.
Yes.
It's everywhere.
It's almost like we can't resist kind of peering into this abyss,
Yeah.
even if it makes our heart race a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So why is that? I mean, that seems kind of paradoxical.
Yeah,
Why would we?
on the surface, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, why would we seek out these stories that, honestly, on the surface, seem designed to make us anxious?
Yeah. That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think if you picture yourself
Yeah.
curled up on the couch late at night,
Mm-hmm.
lights are low, you're completely engrossed in this chilling case.
Okay.
Maybe, your pulse quickens a little bit, but you can't turn away.
Right.
And it's that feeling, that controlled fight or flight response that I think is really at the heart of this.
It's interesting.
And Rasmussen College actually talks about this quite a bit. They say it's the same reason we, love roller coasters or horror movies.
Right.
It's that feeling of being on the edge.
So it's like a safe thrill ride for our nervous system.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's a good way to put it. But here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
Rasmussen College goes on to suggest that this urge to kind of seek out these scary experiences
Yeah.
might actually be rooted in our evolutionary past.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like way back when.
Okay.
For our ancestors, being super aware of danger
Mm-hmm.
was absolutely crucial for survival.
Right.
I mean, it was literally encoded in their DNA.
Wow.
Yeah.
So even though the threats we encounter in true crime stories are thankfully fictionalized,
Thankfully.
our brains are still craving those danger lessons.
Yes.
Like we're still trying to outsmart the predator, even if it's like centuries later.
That's the theory.
Wow, I love that.
It's fascinating to think about.
Yeah, so it's not even just about passively absorbing the story.
Yeah.
We become active participants.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're like detectives.
Yeah.
We're piecing together clues. We're trying to understand why the crime happened,
Okay.
what was going on in the perpetrator's mind.
It's like we're trying to solve a puzzle.
Yeah,
Only the stakes are much higher because this puzzle has real-life consequences.
you got it. And Big Think suggests that this drive to understand the criminal mind,
Okay.
this desire to figure out what makes them tick,
Yeah.
might come from a deeper need to feel in control.
Okay.
If we can decode the darkness,
Mm-hmm.
if we can figure out why these terrible things happen, maybe we feel a little bit safer.
Right.
Maybe we feel a little bit more equipped to navigate a world where bad things do happen.
Almost like we're building this mental defense system.
Yeah, like a psychological shield.
Yeah, against the chaos.
Exactly.
I like that.
But, this raises the question,
What's that?
does that sense of control, does it become a false sense of security?
Oh, that's interesting.
And what about the potential downsides of immersing ourselves in these stories so often? Yeah.
Can it actually affect our mental well-being?
That's a good point. There's this whole idea of desensitization, right? Like if we're constantly bombarded with these stories of violence and tragedy, does it warp our perception of the world?
It's a valid concern.
And Psychology Today actually had some interesting things to say about this.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
What did they have to say?
So they highlighted this study where horror fans actually reported better mental health during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Uh-huh.
And the theory is that because they were already exposed to all these fictional horrors, it kind of inoculated them against the real world anxieties.
Like a vaccine for the psyche.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right?
It is fascinating.
But on the flip side,
Yeah.
We can't ignore the possibility that constant exposure to these narratives, even if they're fictionalized,
Right.
could make us more hyper-aware of danger in the real world.
Exactly.
Oh,
Does
yeah.
make us more anxious, more distrustful, even when statistically those fears might be totally unfounded.
It really makes you stop and think, right?
It does.
Like, have you ever noticed after you go on a true crime binge
Uh-huh.
that maybe you're a little more on edge than
Yeah.
you were before?
I think it's a question worth pondering.
It is. It is. And, you know, this leads us to another really important part of this conversation,
Sure.
which is the ethics
Yes.
of turning real-life tragedies into entertainment.
Right. This is where things get a little more complicated.
Yeah, because now we're not talking about fictional character.
No, we're not.
We're talking about real people, real victims, real families who have suffered unimaginable loss.
And there's this line, right,
Yeah.
between raising awareness about these important issues and potentially exploiting these stories just for our own entertainment.
Well, plus Good brought up an interesting comparison.
Okay.
They were talking about movements like I Had a Miscarriage,
Right.
where sharing personal stories has actually led to some really positive change.
Right.
Uh-huh.
You know, it shows the power of storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely.
But with true crime, it feels like there's always that risk of slipping into voyeurism, where that line between empathy
Right.
and morbid curiosity gets a little blurry.
Exactly. It's a tough one.
It is. It is.
And it's something we need to talk about because this genre is not going away.
Right.
It's only getting bigger.
It is.
But maybe before we go too deep into that,
Okay.
there's another kind of surprising twist we should talk about in all of this.
A twist.
Yeah, a twist.
I thought we were about to wade into some pretty ethically murky waters here.
We are.
Yeah.
We are, but there's a little glimmer of
maybe.
something else in here.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
All right, let's do it.
A twist, huh?
Yeah.
I thought we were about to get into some pretty serious stuff.
We are. We are.
Sure.
But it turns out that all this fascination with the macabre might not be entirely bad for us.
Really?
Yeah. Okay, I gotta admit, I was expecting this to be kind of a downer in terms of like the impact of all this true crime.
Yeah. No, it's easy to go there.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff we were looking at, particularly psychology today,
Okay.
suggests that there might actually be some cognitive benefits
Okay.
to engaging with all of this.
Benefits.
Yeah.
Benefits.
I am intrigued. Tell me more.
Okay, well, remember that fight or flight response we were talking about? That adrenaline rush? Psychology today suggests that could actually be like a mini workout for our arteries.
Interesting.
Yeah. So potentially, you know, in the long run, it could be good for your heart.
So you're saying my true crime obsession is basically cardio?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Okay.
But, you know.
All right, all right.
It is a fascinating idea.
It is.
And there's more.
Oh, there's more.
Yeah. Psychology today also talks about how exposure to this kind of gruesome content,
Okay.
in a controlled setting, of course.
Right. Might actually make us less reactive to threats in the real world.
Hold on. So you're saying by watching, you know, these horrible scenarios play out on my TV screen, I'm actually training my brain to handle stressful situations better.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like, you know, our minds are running these simulations and creating these neural pathways that allow us to process this disturbing information more efficiently.
So it's almost like we're desensitizing ourselves
You know, yeah.
to the truly horrifying stuff,
Yeah.
which then helps us deal with the, you know, everyday stresses of life.
Right, because those don't seem so bad anymore.
Right, exactly. It's like mental weightlifting.
I like that.
Yeah, for our emotional resilience.
Yeah, there you go.
It's wild.
It's wild.
This whole conversation has taken so many turns.
Right.
Like, we started with this primal fear response.
All right.
Then we added in this puzzle-solving element. And now we're talking about potential benefits for our mental and even physical health.
And we can't forget about that ethical tightrope
Right.
that we have to walk as consumers and creators of this kind of content.
Yeah. How do we balance this clear allure that these stories have with the responsibility we have to the real people involved?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is. It is.
I mean, if we really step back and look at this,
Yeah.
our deep dive into true crime
Yeah.
has really revealed this kind of paradox.
Okay.
We're captivated and we're repelled at the same time.
Right.
We're entertained and we're disturbed. We want to understand, but we also sometimes question our own motives.
Yeah. I think that brings us to the most important question of this whole conversation. What does all this mean for us,
Right.
as listeners.
Like what have we learned?
Yeah. What have we learned from going down this true crime rabbit hole?
Yeah, I think that's the question we should be asking ourselves.
Yeah.
We've gone beyond, just a list of reasons why true crime is popular. We've dug into some pretty deep psychological stuff.
Yeah. And even like how our ancient ancestors might be playing a role in our media tastes today.
It's pretty crazy to think.
It is. It is. And we can't forget about the ethical stuff.
No, absolutely not.
That's a big part of this too.
It's a real balancing act, trying to find that responsible way to engage with these stories that are about real people who have suffered.
Yeah. It's making me think, like, I'm going to be paying closer attention now to how these stories are told, who's profiting from them, and how they make me feel.
Right. That kind of critical thinking is so important.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the biggest takeaway from all of this.
Okay.
True crime, when we engage with it thoughtfully, can actually be a starting point for deeper reflection.
Interesting.
It challenges us to confront these difficult truths about ourselves and about the world.
Yeah, I like that.
So where do we go from here?
Yeah, where do we go? What's the final thought you want to leave our listeners with today?
Well, we talked about these potential benefits of true crime.
Yeah.
The sharpening of our minds, the potential for resilience. But is it possible to embrace those benefits without losing sight of the human cost?
Right.
Can we be curious while still being empathetic and responsible?
That's a great question to leave everyone with.
It's something to think about.
It is. I think that really encapsulates everything we talked about today.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's not about, condemning true crime or saying everyone should love it. It's about encouraging people to be more mindful, more informed in their approach.
Absolutely.
This is something that's clearly captured all of our imaginations.
It really has.
So keep exploring, keep questioning.
Yes.
And most importantly, keep those critical thinking skills sharp.
Couldn't have said it better myself.